That coppery little disc with Abraham Lincoln's face, 1 cent. A penny. In this case, dated 1979, with a tiny D just below the date. Denver Mint. Another coin in a world full of them, but what if that single penny, tossed into a change jar, ignored on the sidewalk, flipped absent-mindedly into a vending machine, wasn't worth just 1 cent? What if, in the right condition and with the right mistake, that 1979 D Lincoln cent could be worth hundreds, even thousands? It may sound far-fetched. After all, the 1979 D penny is one of the most common coins ever made. Over 4.1 billion were minted in Denver that year. But that's what makes it so unbelievable. Among those billions, a few rare errors and anomalies slipped through. They're still out there. And to a collector, they're gold, hidden in plain sight. Most 1979 D cents were struck on the standard copper-plated zinc planchet. But here's where it gets interesting. In 1979, the U.S. Mint was still using 95% copper planchets, a tradition that would end just a few years later in 1982, when rising copper prices forced a transition to copper-plated zinc. That makes the 1979 penny some of the last full copper cents, something that adds historical weight, especially for collectors. Now imagine this: you find a 1979 D penny that's thinner than it should be. Lighter. Or maybe it's darker, with strange streaks across its surface. Maybe the rim looks incomplete. You flip it over and realize the entire reverse is off-center, or Lincoln's bust is doubled ever so slightly. That's when the heartbeat quickens, because those aren't just quirks. Those are errors, and errors can mean serious money. Take the 1979 D Lincoln cent struck on a dime planchet, an error that occurred when a blank meant for a dime accidentally got fed into the penny press. The result? A coin smaller than it should be, with parts of the design missing, squeezed awkwardly onto a planchet not meant for it. These coins have fetched up to $400 to $600, sometimes more, depending on condition and eye appeal. Then there are the broad strike errors, where the retaining collar fails during minting and allows the coin's edges to spread outward. The result is a warped, almost pancake-like cent, no rim, no reading, just a flat and stretched coin. These can range in value from $25 to $150, again depending on condition, but perhaps the most mesmerizing errors are the double dies. A true double die isn't damage, it's a flaw in the die itself, created when the hub imprints the die with a second, slightly offset image. When coins are struck with that flawed die, every one comes out showing a doubled image. Look at Liberty, or In God We Trust, or the date. Do the letters appear slightly shadowed or layered? That could be it. While there isn't a widely known major double die for the 1979 D, minor doubling does exist, and coins with strong mechanical doubling or machine doubling can still be collectible, especially when certified. The closer you look, the more chances you have to catch something others miss. Another rare but fascinating error is the off-center strike. Sometimes a coin is struck when the planchet isn't properly aligned with the dies. The result is dramatic: part of the design is missing, pushed off the edge, and the blank space where no strike occurred is clearly visible. These off-center 1979 D cents have sold for $50 to $200, depending on how much of the design is still visible and how far off the strike is. And then there are the clipped planchets, where a blank was cut too close to the edge of a metal strip, leaving a crescent-shaped chunk missing from the coin. These are striking to see, and in pristine condition, they're worth well above face value. For a 1979 D, especially in uncirculated condition, a clipped planchet coin might fetch $30 to $100. But what about the coins that look different, but aren't immediately obvious errors? There are 1979 D cents out there with struck-through grease errors, where dirt or oil partially blocked the die during striking, leaving certain parts of the design faint or missing. These can look like weak strikes, but if authenticated, they become legitimate error coins. Unusual? Yes. Desirable? To the right collector, absolutely. So how do you start finding these? Easy. Start looking. Go through your change. Look closely at every 1979 D penny. You're looking for something that feels off: lighter or heavier weight, strange coloration, off-center designs, doubled letters, clipped corners, missing details. Use a magnifying glass. Flip them in the light. Let your eyes adjust to the normal, so you can spot the exceptional. Most of the rarest 1979 D Lincoln cents were found by ordinary people doing just that. No high-tech gear. No deep numismatic background. Just curiosity. Just attention, and when they spotted something strange, they took the next step. They had the coins authenticated and graded by a third-party service. PCGS, NGC, ANAX. These companies assess the condition of a coin, confirm whether the error is legitimate, and seal it in a tamper-proof slab with a grade and certification number. Suddenly, that penny worth 1 cent becomes a certified rarity worth $100, $500, sometimes more. One man's junk drawer find became a $900 auction item. Another found a penny missing its entire reverse design, completely blank. That coin, a minting anomaly known as a die cap or struck-through error, brought in over $1,000 after grading, and all from a coin that millions of people ignored. The 1979 D Lincoln cent is a classic. Not flashy. Not commemorative. Not rare in number. But that's what makes it perfect. Because buried in all that routine are the accidents. The overlooked. The unrepeatable, and in coin collecting, unrepeatable is everything. So go ahead. Dig through your change. Pull out those old pennies from 1979. Set aside the ones with a D mint mark. Then slow down. Really look. And listen, to the soft clink of the coin in your hand, to the story it might be trying to tell. A penny. 1 cent. We pass them over every day without thinking. We leave them in tip jars, lose them between couch cushions, ignore them when we see them on the ground. But some of these pennies aren't just spare change. Some of them, like this 2006 D Lincoln cent, hide stories, secrets, and surprises. You wouldn't think to look at it twice. It's just a modern penny, right? Common. Mass-produced. Billions of them exist. In 2006 alone, the Denver Mint struck over 3.5 billion Lincoln cents. It was business as usual. But sometimes, even in a routine year, things go wrong. A machine stutters. A die cracks. A blank slips through that shouldn't. And just like that, an ordinary penny becomes something else, a collector's prize, a conversation starter, a piece of minting history. There are pennies from 2006 D that don't follow the rules. And those are the ones worth finding. The most famous and most sought after 2006 D penny error is the extra finger variety. If you flip the coin to the reverse, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial. At the base of one of the statue's hands, just above the columns, there appears to be an extra digit, like a thumb or finger that doesn't belong. It's not a trick of the light. It's a legitimate die gouge or die clash that left an unusual raised area where no part of the design should be. Collectors went wild for it. Certified examples of this extra finger error have sold for anywhere from $50 to $300, depending on condition, visibility, and whether they were slabbed by a grading service. Some call it an extra thumb. Others just call it a curiosity. But what's undeniable is that this strange little flaw has made the 2006 D Lincoln cent one of the more exciting modern pennies to collect, and it's not the only one that in the minting world. Machines move fast, striking over 100 coins per minute. Sometimes, dies clash when there's no planchet between them. When that happens, parts of one side's design get accidentally imprinted onto the other die. If not caught quickly, dozens or even hundreds of coins can be struck with traces of reverse images showing up on the obverse side, or vice versa. These are called die clash errors, and several 2006 D Lincoln cents have shown signs of them. Ghostly outlines, faint impressions of the Lincoln Memorial showing up around Lincoln's face. They're rare and eerie and, in the right condition, can sell for $30 to $100 or more. Then there's the more subtle, but no less fascinating, die break and die chip errors. As dies age and wear down, small cracks or chunks can break off, leaving raised blobs or extra lines on the coins. These are often seen near the date, the lettering, or Lincoln's head. On 2006 D cents, some collectors have found these so-called cuds, or chips, near the Liberty inscription, or even on Lincoln's mouth, giving him a slightly distorted or swollen appearance. These coins are fun, collectible, and can bring $10 to $50, depending on size and location of the break. Another error that turns up occasionally is the off-center strike. If the planchet isn't correctly positioned when it's struck, the entire design can shift, leaving a blank crescent where part of the coin went unstruck. With modern coins, anything more than a 10% off-center strike becomes noticeable and valuable, especially if the date is still visible. For 2006 Lincoln cents with visible off-center strikes, collectors have paid $75 to $200, especially if the coin is in high-grade, uncirculated condition. And then there are the rarities, the bizarre mistakes that happen only a handful of times, like a coin struck on a foreign planchet, an error where a blank intended for another denomination or even another country is used instead. These planchets are the wrong size, wrong metal, and yet somehow, they fit into the striking press. The result? A 2006 Lincoln cent that's too small, too light, too golden, too pale. One such coin, believed to be struck on a planchet for a 10-cent euro coin, was authenticated and auctioned for over $500. Another kind of anomaly? A struck-through error, where a piece of cloth, wire, or even grease was sitting on the die when the coin was struck. Instead of a clean image, the result is an odd depression or blur, something that looks like damage but is actually part of the minting process. These types of errors on 2006 pennies can bring $20 to $80, especially if the pattern is interesting or dramatic. So how can you tell if the 2006 penny in your hand is worth more than 1 cent? Start by looking closely. Use a magnifying glass or loupe and take your time. Examine Lincoln's hands on the reverse. Do you see that extra finger or thumb? Check around the lettering. Look for bulges, bumps, or blurs. Flip the coin back and forth. Does something seem off about the design alignment? Is there a ghostly image where there shouldn't be one? Feel the weight of the coin. Compare it to other pennies from the same year. If it feels significantly lighter or heavier, or the edges look different, it could be a clue. Use a digital scale if you have one. A standard 2006 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Any major deviation could point to a planchet error. If you find something suspicious, something exciting, don't clean the coin. Ever. Cleaning can ruin its value. Instead, store it carefully, take clear photos, and consider sending it to a third-party grading service. These experts can verify the error, assign a grade based on condition, and encapsulate the coin to preserve it. Once graded, the value often increases dramatically. Collectors trust certified coins, and some will pay hundreds for coins they believe are rare and authentic, and don't be surprised if the coin you found today shows up on an auction block a few months from now, fetching bids far beyond what you'd expect for a single penny. That's the magic of coin collecting, because in every handful of change, there's the potential for discovery. In every dull, copper coin, there might be a twist in the story, a manufacturing hiccup, a design flaw, a moment of imperfection that turns into value. The 2006 penny might not look like much. It's recent. It's common. But that's why it's worth looking. The rare ones are buried among the billions. And when you find one, it feels like finding a message from the mint, a quiet mistake that waited years to be seen. So pull out that change jar. Sort through the pennies. Set aside the ones from 2006. Look closely. Look patiently. Because the next big coin collecting story might not come from a rare 1800s coin locked in a museum vault. It might come from your pocket. It might already be in your hand. And it might just be a 2006 Lincoln cent. It's just a penny. A simple copper-colored coin that most of us barely notice. A 1999 Lincoln cent, one of the last minted before the dawn of a new millennium. Billions were made. Most people wouldn't give it a second glance. But maybe they should, because buried in those billions are a few that are different. Not in obvious ways, but in subtle, powerful, valuable ways. And those small differences, the errors, the anomalies, the missteps at the mint, can turn a single 1-cent coin into a collector's dream. It was the tail end of the 20th century. The Denver Mint struck over 6.3 billion pennies in 1999 alone. The Lincoln Memorial reverse was still in use, with its straight columns, hidden statue, and proud symmetry. The obverse, Lincoln's profile, was unchanged since 1909. A design so familiar it was nearly invisible to the eye, but the Mint, for all its precision and history, isn't immune to mistakes. That's where things get interesting. Among those countless 1999 Lincoln cents, a small number came out with errors that slipped past inspectors. These are the coins collectors watch for. Because they can turn up anywhere, in an old jar, a cash register drawer, the bottom of a school backpack. One of the most sought-after errors for the 1999 penny is the wide AM reverse. Normally, on cents struck from 1993 to 2008, the letters A and M in America are very close together, so close they nearly touch. But in a few rare cases, the Mint accidentally used a reverse die intended for proof coins. That die has a wider spacing between those letters. The result? A business strike coin with a proof-style reverse. Most of the wide AM errors for 1999 are from Philadelphia, but a tiny handful have been reported with a Denver Mint mark. These are so scarce that even rumors of one appearing create buzz among collectors. If authenticated, a 1999 wide AM could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars, depending on condition. Even without the wide AM, there are other mistakes to look for. Take the off-center strike. Every now and then, the blank coin doesn't line up properly in the press. The result? A coin where Lincoln's face is pushed to one side, and a crescent of blank metal takes up the rest. The more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable the coin, especially if the full date and mint mark are still visible. Off-center 1999 pennies can bring $50 to $150 or more, depending on the degree and condition. Then there's the struck-through error, when foreign material like grease, wire, or even fabric ends up between the die and the blank. The impression comes out weak, blurry, or partially missing. Some struck-through errors look like someone wiped the coin before it cooled. Others are more distinct, like a coin with part of Lincoln's face ghosted out. These can bring $20 to $80, and more if the pattern is dramatic. You might also come across a clipped planchet, where the blank was cut too close to the edge of the metal sheet. These coins have a curved notch taken out of them, like someone took a bite. They're easy to miss, especially if worn, but if genuine, they're highly collectible. Clipped 1999 cents can be worth $30 to $100, sometimes more if the clip is clean and the coin is uncirculated. Some errors are hidden in the tiniest details. Die chips and die cracks are raised blobs or lines caused by worn or damaged dies. On 1999 pennies, chips sometimes appear on Lincoln's chin, known by some collectors as the spiked chin variety. Others occur near the date or in the Lincoln Memorial. These coins aren't always high dollar, but unique shapes and locations can push their value into the $10 to $50 range, and even more if they're dramatic or combined with other errors. Another fascinating find? A double die. While major double dies from 1999 are rare, minor ones do exist. Look closely at Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date. If the letters appear shadowed, spread, or thickened in strange ways, you might be looking at a doubling error. Certified examples can be worth $25 to several $100s, depending on how clear and dramatic the doubling is, but perhaps the most striking errors are those involving the wrong metal. Every so often, a coin is struck on a foreign or incorrect planchet. These errors are exceedingly rare, but they do happen. Imagine finding a 1999 Lincoln cent that's silver-colored, not copper. Or one that's abnormally light, because it was struck on a dime blank. These off-metal errors are valuable and fascinating, and they've been known to fetch $500 to $1,000 or more at auction. So how do you find one? Start where all treasure hunts begin, your own change. Go through every 1999 penny. Set aside the ones with a D mint mark. Use a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe to check America on the reverse. Look at the spacing between the letters. Inspect Lincoln's face and jacket. Are there raised bumps? Missing letters? Tilt the coin under a light. Sometimes, doubling or clash marks only show up at just the right angle, and always check the edges. A clipped planchet will often have a smooth, crescent-shaped void where the metal was never struck. Off-center strikes will be uneven, and the rim might be missing on one side. If you think you found something rare, don't clean it. Just store it carefully, preferably in a coin flip or small plastic case, and take clear, close-up photos. Then, if you're serious, consider submitting it to a professional grading service. Authentication and grading not only confirm the error but also protect the coin and give it real market value. Every rare coin ever found started the same way, with someone paying attention. Maybe it was a collector. Maybe it was a cashier. Maybe it was a kid, sorting through change with their parents on a slow Sunday afternoon. That's the magic of coins. They're everywhere, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. And the 1999 D penny? It's a modern classic. Not flashy. Not old. But full of possibilities, because in a world that moves too fast, where everything's digital and fleeting, there's something deeply satisfying about holding history in your hand. A piece of metal, made in Denver, at the close of a century, with a secret etched into its face. So don't overlook your pennies. Especially the ones from 1999. Especially the ones with that little D under the date, because one of them might be the one no one's found yet.